And that's just how this year went. Now, even experienced gardeners or market gardeners or new gardeners, they battle the weeds. And it's important you don't let the weeds win. You got to be tougher than the weeds. Hello everybody, welcome back. This is Not a Pro Gardener here. We are in Zone 6B. Today what we're going to be doing is we're going to be kind of doing a garden update, and we're going to talk about how we reduce the weed seeds with the least amount of effort possible in the garden. It's the first week in August, and it's about 87 degrees outside, and it's partly cloudy. The sun's poking out a little bit, so it's very humid today. And it just rained last night, which is why we're doing this today. Now, there's been so much to do. As some of you may know, that I have been gone for quite a while. I ended up getting sick for roughly about a month. And if you want to hear about that, it'll be roughly at the end of the video if I remember to spill the beans on that. We are in the in-ground garden today, and I've gotten some of this stuff done. There's been a lots of things piling up for me to get done, and all the cold season stuff. My last video was the broccoli harvest video. I did get the broccoli out. I got a couple of cauliflower heads. They were roughly maybe about this big. Some of them was this big after a couple more weeks go on, and they definitely had some sun scald on the heads, but I didn't get to harvest anything else after a couple cauliflower heads because I ended up getting very, very sick. And the cabbage, the Brussels sprouts, I had Brussels sprouts almost the size of a quarter. They was pretty close, and everything ended up getting neglected, and it's very, very hard for me to see the garden like this. It's very discouraging, especially for new gardeners. I'll show you some B-roll of what's going on out here later, but I did mow a lot of this off with the lawnmower just because of the ease of use, and we're going to get a little bit more into that in a minute. The reason we're going to be doing this today is because while I was sick for a month, and with like maybe 2 weeks of recovery roughly in there, I'm starting to get back into pace. And there was just neglect, and there was only so many things I could do, and there was a lot that I couldn't do. And it was a huge loss on all of the cold season stuff that I had planted because they was doing so well, and I wanted to cover so many things on it, but it just didn't happen. And that's just how this year went. Now, even experienced gardeners or market gardeners or new gardeners, they battle the weeds. And it's important you don't let the weeds win. You got to be tougher than the weeds. And all of my hard work won't be in vain. I know I've just added a ton of weed seeds because we have a really invasive, we've called it water grass. I don't know what it is, but it takes off. It grows on weed fabric, grows through it. It's really, really rough stuff to get rid of. And I've just added a ton more seeds after mowing all this off. But I have a very effective garden tool, and you've seen it in other videos, will be the tarp, the silage tarp that I have. It is a tried and true method for me to reduce my weed seed bank, and it's like my saving grace, if you will, because seeing all these weed seeds growing and dropping, and then they just produce more and more, it's really hard. It was really hard to watch, honestly, as I was practically helpless to do anything. But as I seen this stuff take place, I had weed grass growing that was almost higher than my knees, which is why I didn't want to waste you guys' time on me doing a cleanup on all of that crud in the garden. Now, we're going to be germinating as many seeds as we can with this tarp method because we want to get a cover crop growing in September, October, hopefully, we'll see. But this tarping usually takes, depending on what season you apply this method in the summertime, I've had cover crops die in like 3 to 4 weeks, maybe even sooner. Depends on how hot it is and how much moisture you have under that tarp, and since it just rained and starting to heat up, I think I got enough moisture under here to tarp it today, so that's why I want to jump on this and get on it. And the less work the better, because all I had to do is lay this tarp down, weigh it down, and wait. All I got to do is wait, and then it'll be so much nicer with all that stuff added to the soil, and it'll help germinate your weed seeds at the same time. Now, some of the favorite reasons and why we do this, because of it's such an effective tool to use. It reduces the tillage in my plot. Now, I still have to till it every once in a while because we literally don't have any topsoil, and I just haven't made that investment because I can grow without it. This hard clay soil here we have is a very big challenge to do a lot of things. Me preferably, I would like to use no tillage, but it's got to happen at some point here. That's just the soil structure that we have. It's just straight clay, no topsoil. So every year we cover crop to try to alleviate those problems. Now, it also puts this garden plot on hold till I'm ready. So I could just let this go and keep mowing it and mowing it and mowing it and keep adding weed seeds to it, or just growing weeds. And I don't really want to do that. I want to terminate these really invasive weeds that I have. And I'm just going to put this tarp on it, and it's going to be like putting a placeholder on it till I'm ready to put this cover crop in. And as we've stated many times, it reduces your weed seed pressure. Think of you have a bag of seed, and every time those germinate and then the tarp kills your seeds, you have less seeds in your bag. So you just kind of think about your weed seed bank like that. There's only a finite amount if you don't contribute to that. Like, now I'm going to tarp it to kill these weeds and the weed seeds that are on top of the soil. If I tilled this in, it would just be creating more problems for me later. And I don't want to do that. I want to germinate these weed seeds that are sitting on top and kill the grass, because that is my biggest issue. Now, about these tarps that I'm talking about, what do you mean tarps? I'm sure I've popped up an image by now, some B-roll clip maybe even. It's a tarp it's a silage tarp that I have purchased, and they are composed of UV treated polyethylene plastic, if I said that right. They can be used to cover the soil and reduce weed pressure, and they help prepare the soil before planting, which makes a spring planting that much faster. And I have done that a couple times here. I've only grown here 3 or 4 years. It's hard to tell. The in-ground plot, my raised beds I've had longer than that. So this in-ground plot is still fairly new with tons of weed seeds in it. Every year I try to not contribute to adding to my weed seed bank. Now, I'll pop up some other videos over here, and these are other videos that we've started showing and talking about tarping and stuff like that. So if you're more interested and more information on those, we'll have those videos for you to click on up here, and you can decide for yourself whether that's something you need to apply or invest in your garden. Now, one of the big cons I have for these tarps is the price. Now, some of them are pricey, and I've heard they last for 5 to 6 years. I mean, they're only out in the sun for so long, and then I fold them up and put them away. So they're not like they're sitting out constantly all year round. They got to be UV resistant, because if they're not, it's gonna start deteriorating. Now, a tip for you that I have done myself is you can check with your local lumber yards, because they have UV like lumber tarps. Whenever they deliver big bunks of lumber, they have tarps that they cover those with, and they're cheapy, flimsy, and the main thing is they block out the sun. That's what you want to do. That's the whole thing here. And I have probably, well, I got probably 4 now of these tarps, and they do work. I use them on my raised beds, and they were free to me. I don't know about other lumber yards, but I asked and they had them, so they gave them to me. I don't know what they do with them for sure, but there's a free option. If you don't have huge plots, you might be able to score something there. Just go ahead and check it out. Just see what you think. I've also heard that the vinyl billboards are also a really good one. I have one of those. I have 2 of those as well. It's a big one that got cut in half, and it's starting to show some daylight through it. I tried it this last year, and I could tell that the sun was shining through it, because some of the stuff was not killed off. So I don't know how long those last, but I've had those for at least 10 plus years. So eventually those start to deteriorate as well. So nothing's a fix-all, nothing's perfect. Okay, so now if you stuck to the end of this video, the last thing I got to do is to put this tarp on, and then I'm going to talk about a little bit about what happened to me. Not really going to go into a bunch of details, but pretty much the base of this is I got to where I had a stomach virus or some form of viral infection, something like that. It's still kind of unclear what exactly was going on, but the main thing is now we are better and we are getting out here and doing the things that has to be done. Don't let these weeds discourage you. If you're a new gardener or an experienced gardener, sometimes you just got to start over, start fresh, and a tarp is a good way to start fresh. And we're going to see you in the next one. Thanks again. This is Not a Pro Gardener here. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.